Greetings, shalom, salama, siyemi, shalom. Greetings to my family, whether you're tuning on in, watching, wherever you're at in the rest of the world. I welcome you. This is Q2UA. You're joining Karis Copeland, Executive Director here at Quest to Unite Africa, Q2UA. And I wanted to get on here real quick. Yeah, if you didn't know, every weekend is a special report because every weekend you realize that they do everything on the weekends. Um the release of the so-called missile strike, the damage that had been done on an quote unquote Iranian, nuclear facility. Who knows if that's real? The supposed uh, allowance of long range missiles that can now target into Russia, especially Moscow. And there hasn't been any reports contradicting that. So, honestly, who knows if that's even real? There are a lot of things that are going on that we have here in the media. And I'm going to say media of all portions, whether social media, mainstream media, or other prevailing news outlets. There's the theme that's going on that there's a messaging campaign. Even this media that I'm talking to you right now, this platform, this channel, has a messaging campaign. And I have that right here, the messaging campaign of please support the mission of Q2UA by donating at questtouniteafrica.org. Those are messaging campaigns. Why are messaging campaigns so important? And how do messaging campaigns become effective? Well, and what we have learned over these last, I would say, 80 plus years, excuse me, family dealing with a head cold. We've learned to be able to become influenced. That's why you have social media influencers. You had media influencers. It wasn't that nice to say you're being influenced by the TV 10, 15 years ago. Influence. What? They're trying to mind control. They're trying to do this and do that. And the question is yes. It's not the question, it's actually the answer. Yes. There's a mind control because why? In the traditional media, the mind control was followed up by commercials, and those commercials would have a catchy tune because why? You would be in great and you'd be grasped and encompassed by the channel, by the program, why it's called program. You'd be programmed. The programming would then be so effective that advertisers would then see you emotionally attached to what it was that was being broadcast to you. The message was being broadcast. And in the same way, you see now that messaging, now the television And this is why you have last week, you had CNN saying that they're going to do a bunch of layoffs. Because why? Because people are not buying into the message that's being said. The message that they're getting is more on the social media apparatus. And then through social media is when you have advertisers coming through and presenting whatever ad that they have, because on social media you're able to pinpoint a demographic. That's what they call us. That's what they call you, me, everyone else. Because why? Because we are going to be consuming, or the hopes of consuming, a product. So as a consumer of whatever they're trying to sell, then it is a niche of how do you market to that person? What are they interested in? What are our interests as a group here? This is, on this platform, a focus group. What gets you to ticking? Do you tick because of A, X, Y, and Z? Or are you there at A, B, and C? How do we get you to buy in to either what we're trying to sell, what we're trying to demonstrate, or the result that we're trying to provide? And understand the result, especially in this day and age, there's a result. The result is done through how they are able to have you take a look at these current events. What is the result? Do you feel more enabled to support operations in the Middle East, Europe, China, the North Koreas at the same time, and potentially other events? Do you blame adversaries for the position or the construct of today's global hotspots? Do you look at the geopolitical ramifications as a byproduct of US policy, or is that just something that has been created by adversaries that have made the world go bonkers? And that's the position that we're in. That is the reality that they're looking at. What is it that we can distract you with next? Because number one, we didn't get the reaction that we were waiting for with African Americans. Nobody joined with these groups, and they totally went a completely different way. They said, we are not going to worry about anything or anyone else. That's a problem. Because why? The whole premise of this is to continue to keep us ingratiated. Because why? Because if you emotionally energize them to support, then guess what? Then they will flow their dollars into it. Understand that was the precept after the civil rights movement. Well, in order for us to continue to have civil rights, in order for us to continue to have voting, we need to have a congressional black caucus. And then that congressional black caucus, we can't do your endeavors for free. We can't keep your voting rights going for free. They need to be supported. Support a system that only will engage with you every 4 years, or when there's an election cycle, every 2 years. They got to put on a pomp and circumstance, and then they got to say, well, this person here is more racist than that person. That person there will give you more subsidies. And the lies that we've had to endure over the last 80 years, since the 60s, 65 years, they were really trying to get us after World War II, because they realized after World War II that they needed to have African American involvement. They needed to have Black people being involved and supporting, because the support wasn't necessarily as robust. And they realized that after World War II, they needed to have our involvement. I've always asked the question, because there are a lot of, to me, this is just me speaking. There are a lot of logic gaps regarding World War II. There are a lot of logic gaps regarding our role in World War II. But the reality is that when you look at the historical account, we're not talking about anything that's released to media, then media goes through and then they try to act like there weren't any Black folks over in World War II. Like there weren't any Black folks over in Korea. The reality showed that a lot of the fighting, especially once we had become involved, things dramatically changed. Things dramatically turned around. And now you had a position to where you had your very first, in the Uniform Code of Military Justice, you had the very first non discriminatory policies within the federal government being represented in the Department of Defense. And understand that was the very first element back in the late 1940s. Oh, we know that we need them. See, the problem that they will always run into, we know when they're desperate, but they will not try to just come clean. We know that you all need us. So understand, when you're seeing these TikTok videos, when you're seeing Phil from Emancipation Media and all the other content, when you're seeing our channels and our communities talking about what it is that Black folks will do to support, because we just don't support with our time, we support with our bodies, with our mouths, with our presence. with our opinions that provide that promote the argument, especially when we see that there's injustice going on, when we see that there is a an inhumane policy occurring. Well, we are able to utilize those experiences because we've all lived through this life here in the United States. And then they always say, oh, in 2024, I can't believe that this is happening. Well, what did you think was happening in 2020? What did you think was happening in 2015, 2010, 2000? It was happening. It was just that you didn't have the social media to show what was going on. And because you didn't have the social media to show, it wasn't a problem because, again, the statement of out of sight, out of mind always holds true to our condition until it's no longer out of sight, out of mind. Understand that when you had George Floyd, understand that the context of being able to shoot live streams on the fly was now marred by the fact that there's always a 10-minute delay, not the fact, because of technological issues of doing a live. And as many of us had witnessed, that if it's not planned out, especially when you're holding a big event that was seen by most of the world last Friday night, it's not the technology that we experience when we're looking at Netflix. It was based on the fact that there had to be the AI interactions that would then create the ability to process whatever content was getting ready to be delivered, and that then the social media platforms would be able to subjugate and reduce the impact. Understand, what you had in the George Floyd isms was the first interactions of social media censoring. And if you were on social media at that time, there had been a flurry from 2020 to 2021, 22, 23. Yes, even at that time, there was a memo, a national security policy. I don't think national security, but definitely it's a government wide policy. And then it got adopted by other private companies. If you talk out on a certain topic, if you're on a certain platform, if you're doing this or doing that, it wasn't just that if you're in uniform, you couldn't be in uniform talking. That was the same as like going to a rally or something in uniform. There was the conditions that were being placed on each and every one of us of how we were to operate. Because why? because we didn't know at that time that what we say and what we do highly influenced and and influences everything that is done around the world. I'm sorry, but you saw in 2020 when we came out in full force, you realize US embassies had to shut down? Folks were coming up and protesting on our behalf. That was the amount of power and influence that they did not want to tell you that you had, but you do. Because then what ended up happening months later, folks were really trying to decide how to deal with things. You had UN, Human Rights Council committees, you had all this stuff. Understand, they went to so much pressure to try to negate all of that, that yes, it is my opinion that they went to war because of us. Oh, we got this Ukraine thing. We got this Ukraine thing. Nobody cared about Ukraine. Not in our community. We didn't care about Ukraine. We were trying to care about, we were caring about, and we were working on a a bill that had protected us, that had us as a protected class, as they had for other folks that are now located there in the the Western Mediterranean or Eastern Mediterranean nation, western part of the Middle East. There's a federal protection. And boy, oh boy, they were getting not just federal, but also state protections. You had the same thing happen in Georgia. So, what actually ended up occurring was when we had cried out to get help, they went to every other group and they decided to have a Asian anti-hate, anti-discrimination crime bill. And then literally moments or months later, weeks later, well, let's distract you of how we were able to, you know, push Russia to retaliate and go into Ukraine. Let's focus on that for a while. As Americans, we need to come together because we have a proxy war that we've engaged in. And they truly believed that that was enough to have us focus on the new shiny object dangling in front of our face. And for many of our people, that did allow for the new shiny dangly object because we could see it actually had an unintended consequence when that happened. It showed that not only were we going through some things, but also our African brothers and sisters that were going out to try to learn and bring back some knowledge and skills to the country. They were caught up in Ukraine and they couldn't get out, and they were being told that they were going to get conscripted. While all of the Ukrainian men, particularly, were rushing to the gates because they knew what that meant. And no, it's not just all this war because they didn't want to give us protected rights. No, it was all this war because they knew that if you were going to get the protected rights, then there was a slippery slope, excuse me, that would come to a natural conclusion. And that natural conclusion was always going to be a reparations or some sort of other recompensatory act or obligation. So, yes, could the US have stopped everything going on in Ukraine? Absolutely. Absolutely. They could have stopped that even right now. And now, over the last, what, 24, 48 hours? Now they're escalating because now you had from out of the Biden administration, supposedly a journalist had reported that Biden had indeed green lighted cruise or attackums. Attackums are long range missiles that are capable of hitting Moscow, and that was a red line. And that was, hey, we may have to use these nuclear weapons talk that occurred 5, 6 months ago. And everybody was saying, yep, it got authorized. It's just, we'll probably see it later on. And now, understand, make no mistake about it. The moment that they talked about that back in what, July, August timeframe, and I said that. I said that on Covenant Awakenings, not maybe not this channel. I said if they're talking about it, they're already sending it. That means those weapons have already been sent. It just means that even though the weapons have been sent, they may not have been authorized to use. And understand that when those weapons are sent and when they're authorized to use, don't think that it's just Ukrainian soldiers using those weapons. Understand that those weapons are transported, they're manned, and they're maintenance by U.S. personnel. Understand what they're trying to say without trying to say it. But we got to get over the disingenuousness of these shadowy words, the shadowy talk. Well, they didn't say it was Americans. No, and they won't. Well, they didn't. No, they won't. But the reality is, this is something that was already discussed, and there are other channels, other programs, other spectrums of social media that had discussed that. And now they're going to be going on and talking about these implications, because what ends up happening is that right now you have that going. And I would probably say that the first strikes will probably occur sometime within the next 2 weeks, probably on Thanksgiving, when people are worried about the turkey and the stuffing and the gravy. Oh, that happened? Okay, whatever. Can you pass me the cranberry sauce? Because the situation that has been faced is that the shallowness, see, when you are dealing with the lack of compassion, when you're dealing with for the lack or the coldness of men's heart, the waxing of men's heart, basically the withdrawal, the decreasing, the diminishing. Why is that? Because people don't care then what happens to other people. How did that start? Well, that started with us. I don't really care about reparations. Don't worry about recompensing anybody or pro- providing for a historical injustice. And see how they went down the slippery slope. And their actions are still going on strong in Gaza. And remember that greater Israel thing? Someone had said that the other day. I like to give credit to whom credit is due. Understand, Saudi Arabia is getting ready to do military drills and exercises with Iran. If you had told me that 5 years ago, I would have laughed you out of the room. Yeah, right. Can't see it. Not going to happen. Okay. I would never have believed you, even if my life depended on it. And now that is real. That they're conducting joint naval exercises between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Yes, that is real. But why is that? Because now understand why you have Lebanon going on. You have the creation of their Greater Israel campaign. That is a campaign. That is real. And in creating that greater Eastern Mediterranean nation campaign, or some could argue, the restoration of Edomia, and that's what I believe is going to happen. It's the restoration of Edomia. That's my personal opinion. It's one of those, it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. Oh, snap, it's going to happen, which portends to me, I always say this, you don't have to pay attention to what we say. You can dog out, you can clown on everything we say. I don't care. You can call us liars, provocateurs, whatever you want to call us. I don't care. But all I have to ask is, can you explain why this is happening in front of our very eyes? And then the protocol is to say that we're crazy, say that we're this, say that we're that. To denigrate, to dismiss, to downplay. Okay. What I believe, this is my opinion that others share. What I believe is that you only have a certain amount of time that they are witnessing. They more than likely already know the time frame. They more than likely already know what's happening. I was looking at an article, man, I wanted to get that article because people were taking DNA tests so they can get back to Europe. No lie. Taking DNA tests. I thought that that was crazy. But I wasn't. It was just that it was overlooked. Let me share this with you all. jus sanguinis, or blood right, might entitle you to citizenship in Europe. This is as of September 24th. This is from CNN by Terry Ward. Can't make this up. New York City author Lisa Wixon always knew she had a path to EU citizenship through her maternal great grandfather, who arrived in the United States in 1906 from Rijeka in Rijeka in Western Croatia. Croatia is one of many countries in the European Union to recognize jus sanguinis, the right of blood, which can be used to acquire citizenship by descent as opposed to solis, the right of soil, which grants citizenship solely on a person's place of birth. But until some of the country's stricter requirements were simplified on January 1st, 2020, Croatian citizenship wasn't something Wixon thought she'd be able to acquire without some major hurdles. Before then, Croatia required applicants who could trace their heritage to Croatia to take a language test, among other qualifications to apply for citizenship. And you can read that story, that article. That was from CNN. Now all of a sudden, now there's an interest to come back to their country of birth or of origin. But when we say, hey, we want to be able to establish a relationship with our brothers and sisters that we were forcibly taken from, then we're looked at all crazy. So how come they don't get merited the same response of that? Well, we should be looking at them all crazy. Why would you want to go back to a country where your great great grandfather had lived, had left, because you're an American? The the chips aren't stacking up. Something's odd here. Unless they know what we already know and how this society is moving. And as the society is moving that way, the customary solution of, hey, let's get them to fix our problem. Let's get them in terms of, let's get black folks. Hello, black people. Can you please fix the problem? Can you please fight our wars? Can you please lend your voice to supporting what we're doing? Can you please not speak against our effort? And now you have a whole bunch of white folks saying that, you know what? Maybe it's time for me to go back home. Maybe it's time to go back to Europe. I'm not making that up. You just saw the article. So what do you think that they're doing? They're not just researching things. No, they're giving monies to foundations that they deem worthy enough that will then be able to provide solutions and provide interactions with the governments of where they want to migrate back into. Yep, 4 generations, it's been enough. I need to get back. But for us to say, look, we want to do critical infrastructure economic development, we're not advocating for anybody to move back to the continent. We're not advocating for folks to up and leave and go there without a plan. No, nobody's saying that. But the mission is to be able to create those linkages, to create those economic points of exchange, to create a knowledge exchange, a resource exchange. And now, more than ever, here you have it. Because our people are starting to wake up and realize that, hey, well, shoot, you know what? If they don't like it, they got an exit plan. They can up and roll out anytime they want. And we're just sitting here left holding whatever bag that they give us. And usually the bag is kind of smelly, has a nasty texture, seems like it is some sort of dung or entrails. They know. Oh, when it starts getting bad, because why? Even after the election, there is a spike on passports. Can't make this up. We were looking crazy 3, 4 years ago with, well, you know what? It's time that we need to kind of look at and maybe consider the continent. Let's just have the talk. But a lot of folks want to say, oh, jump on in, jump. No, practical steps. Build the relationship, build the relationship, build the relationship. 4 or 5 years ago, we were told that nobody on the continent wanted to deal anything or do anything with us. We were told we were just cicadas and we were just this and that and all sorts of derogatory slang. And now we get told, well, don't focus on that too much. Because why? Because our brothers and sisters on the continent are now asking us to pay attention to them, asking us to come back together. And then we are realizing, wow, we needed to just, do for selves. We needed to, you know what, take their advice. We emotionalized the advice, but we actually should have taken the advice. You know what? Yeah, you're right. Maybe I do need to pull myself up by the bootstraps. But in order to pull myself up by the bootstraps, well, guess what? Just where you get all the other components to this bootstrap, you know what? Maybe I need to talk to our brothers and sisters on the continent. Because maybe, just maybe, instead of pulling myself up by the bootstraps, maybe I can produce bootstraps and maybe produce boots, and then maybe have an economic corridor that wasn't there. Thank you for your concern. Thank you for your advice. It took us a little bit after we had emotionalized things to realize, yes, that should have been the game plan the whole time. Because what do? They go back and forth to Europe, to Asia, to the Middle East, and guess what they do? They bring back their goods. Because why? Because that's something that they have a market for. Remember, it's a market. The only ones that haven't been able to play in this market has been us because we've been so emotionally concerned about things that the answer was right in front of our face. And we all went through that. We all go through that. It's not a slight on anybody because I can throw my hand up and say, yeah, that was my blind spot too. But I think, though, as I had stated, not just here, but also on Covenant Awakenings, I think that it's easier to emotionalize us because if we are very emotionalized and energized through that emotional ism, then guess what you have? You have a lack of productivity because emotionalizing with a purpose is called empowerment. See, I'm about to give you some phrases and things and go in on some things that the Art of Diplomacy Challenge covers. See, understand when we come through our worth in these channels, the coaching in these channels, just in this group setting, those folks pay thousands of dollars to glean this knowledge. And they do. How do you get a focus? What do you need to write down? How do you need to do it? What was your experience? But we've had to learn how to market it correctly. We've been a little behind the curve of sorts because of how we rationalize things, how we look at things, how we move, how we view things. We don't need to emotionalize anything. Matter of fact, the Most High, when he dealt with Aaron from when two of his sons had offered unauthorized fire, because why? Because they got emotional and they didn't do what the Most High had told them to do. And they felt that consequence. They felt that burn. And the Most High literally told Aaron, he said, you better not cry. You better not get emotional. You better understand what this was for. Understand this is the test element. Can we do things without being so over emotionally contorted, thrown out of sorts? Because why? Because understand that's how our enemy has been able to control our thought process. Well, now that I have you emotionally invested, now let me go ahead and now let me say that we all need to come together, and I'm 2% Nigerian, so it doesn't matter. Oh my goodness. My goodness. I saw that the other day on Bill Scott was having that on one of his live streams. And if you listen to what the Caucasian lady was saying, she was literally trying to find and provide anecdotes of how they would be able to recondition and reframe the narrative, because our people are starting to say, wait a second, we need to wake up. And people get emotional just when we realize that we've been played because of our emotions. It's a hard thing. It's a hard reality. And that's what's happened. I know. Folks want to, let me just end the stream right now. Let me close this on down. Because it doesn't feel good to be confronted with the truth. Whether that's you all doing it or YouTube doing it, look, they don't like these truths. You realize that they've attacked truth. The war on truth. It didn't just begin this year. It didn't just begin this century. It didn't just begin this decade. That began hundreds of years ago, thousands years ago. That began with Yahusha. And now you have institutions that are created to fight against the truth. But the way that they fight it against it, it's so crafty that it's marketed. It's marketed to us. You really don't want to do that. You really don't want to say this. Yeah, I know that's I get the iconoclasms and iconoclasts, but you don't want to say this. See, doesn't that look more marketable? That's what they try to say. Those are the keywords. It's more marketable. Oh, don't worry about Trump's picks. That you don't have no type of black person. You have a person of color. See, you got one standout. See? And then I'm praying that our people can actually see that this is the game that they have done. You had the same game with the Democrats. You have some black people, see, but their substance and their character is horrible. But at least we got you something. At least we got you that eye appeal. If you didn't know what was going on, the whole world is starting to see this place, and they're not wanting to do business with this place. Why are your pockets hurting? Why are your dollars hurting? Because it's simple. Nobody wants to do business with them. So, what's the solution that they always have? It's their solution. They already know. It's just that we don't know, or we really just willfully ignore it. And I'd say that we blatantly ignore it for a large majority of our people. They know that if nobody is taking their dollars, then they have to go to war. Thank you, Brother Mikhail. Brother Mikhail said it. Yes, war. Cynthia, yeah, pillage is correct, but to get to the pillaging, you got to do war first. It's just that, these barbarian invasions don't seem so barbaric when there's policy that's involved, when, you have consensus, you have a good messaging campaign, right? It's a marketing thing. You realize that wars are marketed too. Nobody just wants to say we're going to go to war and take your mothers, your fathers, your brothers, your sisters, you and your children, husbands and wives. Oh, and by the way, we're going to have to disproportionately use African Americans. You know that that's coming. It's not to be a warmonger or, whatever people want to say. It's just to be truthful and honest. Because if we don't have anything left, we might as well just have the truth. Tell the truth and shame the devil. So now in this time frame, no, Lloyd Austin was absolutely correct. It's going to be your sons and daughters that are going to have to go to war because they're trying to step that up. I'm going to be blunt here. The decision to cross the red line that had been made with the authorization of the long range missile strikes. Well, I think we all saw that coming. I think we talked about that a couple weeks ago. Matter of fact, yeah, they can do X, Y, and Z. Do people think that I'm crazy because I say, yeah, we're probably going to see a nuclear weapon being used by them, and I mean not them, I mean this country. That's what I mean. Is that crazy? Is that irrational? It sounds crazy. It sounds irrational. But when you actually understand that that is, as Brother Eric had said, the scorched earth technique, then that is the exact course of action. This should be shocking. This should be all over outlets and social media that they're trying to ratchet up a war. Brother Karras, you're trying to incite folks. It's hard to incite people when you literally see what's happening in front of your very own eyes. That's the thing that always gets me. I have zero power to do anything. Nothing. All I can do is just talk about it and be a witness and let the Most High do what he said he's going to do. No, understand what it is. See, I don't think our people truly understand this. We get emotional. We're on the emotionalism. We're on the emotionalism. As I get on into this, do me a favor, everyone. Please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Yes, we are trying to grow Q2UA. Like, share, and subscribe. Because I want to tell you why you all are looking at the emotional impacts of what deportation literally means. And this is just my opinion. So I'm just giving you my analysis. You can take it with a grain of salt. You can say whatever. So, so let's just be honest with ourselves. Over the course of um, 2.5, 3 years, you've had the lollipop, and you've also had that a recognized jump in the amount of deaths, deletions that has occurred in record numbers. So understand this, you can actually have shortages in a couple of different instances. The lack of manpower and people to do what? To create the necessary supply. So you don't have any more, you don't have the output because of the human capital involved in that output. So what do? You corporately restructure, you do operations to restructure. And now with automation, now we got robots designing, doing the cars, getting them together. So then now we can go ahead and get those folks on out of there to make it look as though, man, this they're shutting jobs because there's too many jobs. No, they're shutting jobs because the lack of being able to have the economic viability. The economy is circular. People have to spend so people can be able to provide. Spend so the dollar circulates. Now, understand it's not necessarily revolutionary, but it does. It's for us, it is after we had been destroyed purposefully to have us become heavily discouraged to do business with one another, to circulate the dollar with one another. That's what you had in all the other communities, except for us. The ability to say, you know what, we need to do business with our other brothers and sisters. That creates an empowering concept. Now, going back to deportations, understand if you've come over here illegally, then what do you have? America doesn't care about deporting anybody. That like stop. If you're thinking that's about deportations, let me just share this context with you. Because it's not about deportations. And it's a shame that we all should know that game. We all should understand that game. Oh, goodness. It wasn't about deportations. It's about holding over a power element that they're not used to. They're coming into a different country. So what do they need to have? A power element. Here is how I have the power to either send you back or allow you to stay here. Can we agree on that? But now here's another component. Here's another dynamic. Why do you think that they're trying to reduce the requirements for the military? I don't even think you have you don't even I don't even think you have to speak English anymore. Let me know if I'm wrong. So now you've emotionally juiced up everybody. You've emotionalized everybody that they can only stay in the country when they can fulfill their quote unquote debt to society by coming over as an illegal alien. You all see where I'm going? But in order to fulfill their quote unquote debt to society, a 2 or 3 year military obligation or commitment will allow them to gain their citizenship. It kind of sounds like Rome 6.0. Se habla español. That is actually one of the first. characteristics or symptoms in a society that's collapsing. It's not collapse. It's a collapsing society. It took Rome, I think, about 30 or 40 years for it to fully collapse. So you have to create campaigns. You now have about 4 campaigns. Are the campaigns winnable? No, they're not going to be winnable. But what will it do? It'll allow enough stability on the home front to where now you have a domestic policy that can say, hey, you know, we're just like everyone else. We're serving our time in the military. And then that creates economic vitality. It circulates. All the while, the countries around the world, they don't care. They'll see everything going through and then they will look at how alternative financial methods of transactions, alternative economic methods, alternative financial systems. They're going to begin to develop it and they're going to be developing it at a cut rate speed. And the reason I can say that is because all those sanctions that the US had on Russia, all those sanctions, that now all of a sudden Russia said that it doesn't want to give away any more nuclear material. Wait, we had all these sanctions on Russia. How's the United States still doing business with Russia? I thought all these sanctions, I thought all this. And you're telling me Russia cut them off? What's going on here? I thought Russia needed any bit of dollar it could find. What's happening? And Russia's just quite saying, look, it was okay. Yeah, we needed some of your dollars. We ain't really need it like this. And if they did that, then what that actually means is you have a system that's already now well established and in place that now some of the last remaining economic interests are being severed. So now this is what we see occurring, which to me, less than a month from the Kazan summit, no, I think they're going to have a BRICS payment system here probably before January 1st. My opinion. Oh wow, they gave up. They cut all that. I'll try to find those articles. That's right, Cynthia. That's what I believe. They're going to offer citizenship to people instead of deportation. Yes. We have this hanging over your head. It's hanging over your deportation, deportation, deportation. Oh, but we can offer you citizenship if you serve the United States government with the military. Just think about it. Just think how much happier your family will be. Just think about not having to go through all the craziness and how your family will be able to enjoy the perks of military life. Because of course we won't even think of deporting you, especially during your military service. I have to laugh because I'm like, for real, nobody was saying that. Nobody was seeing this setup coming. Don't need to concern folks with the draft when we have willing and able volunteers that have crossed over illegally and that are a threat or that are faced with the threat of being deported. See, those threats to me are always smoke screens. I'm just saying, you all let me know if I'm way off base. Let me know if I'm talking crazy. And they may do it again, yeah. Exodus is near. They may do it again. Okay, we got all these people. Hey, we got millions of people. 30, 40 million people. Men and women that are able to fight. They're more than motivated. Come on in and pick up arms. To me, that's not a far-fetched reality because let's just face it, you have a traditional fighting pool that's not really eager to fight. It's not eager to join the US military. That's not eager to listen to really any more lies and deceptions about what fighting for the US will do in terms of creating an opportunity for whatever social injustice or social program or social maneuver that wants to happen. Because when you've had, especially from our younger population, saying, you know what, this is a lie, we just need to do for ourselves. And this is a 22-year-old saying it, then that really means that your mainstream demographic population is now understanding what's going on. Remember, as you get older, you don't have that many bodies. Your population groups tend to thin out the more you go up in age in those age brackets. So now you have a sizable demographic age bracket that is now saying, No, we need to economically control this thing, handle ourselves. This is where, at least for me, where I see this strategy going. And it's not going to work. And matter of fact, when that strategy does happen and it never works, you literally have rebellions, incitements, and all other sorts of issues within that society. It's a collapse. We would have healed Babylon, but she refused to be healed. Sorry. But to me, they fell for the okey doke. They fell for the trick. And what can you do? What can you say? You shouldn't have fallen for the trick. You shouldn't have fallen for the okey doke. Hey, that's not on me. All I can do is just come here day in and day out and lend my voice and say what's on my heart that the Most High puts on my heart. And then I go from there. But yeah, family, that's all I had today. Just to kind of give a recap over the weekend. I didn't get much into the Tyson thing. I think we all saw where that was. There's a little bit more spiritual implications on that one, and I'll probably pick up that conversation. Most High willing tomorrow. But yeah, family. Economic empowerment is the name of the game. But in order to do that, family, we have to continue to do the work with one another. So I ask family for your support of the Q2UA mission. The mission is not built off of one man. It's not built off of a with a one particular group of people. It's built off of all of us. So I thank you, family, for your support to that mission. So that said, family, I have to get up on out of here and go from there. Please keep Quest to Unite Africa In your prayers. I appreciate that, family. Family, please keep me in your prayers. I definitely appreciate that. Keep all of us here. All the volunteers, the boards, the director, all the folks, especially right now. So again, family, we appreciate your donations. Your donations allows for day-to-day functions to occur. Being able to have a website, being able to have emails to reach on out to people, being able to collaborate with our volunteers, and to be able to create opportunities. That's just the day-to-day operations, family. So that does that does cost. So we thank you for any bit that can help. We truly do. Whether it's 5, 10, $15, that goes a long way. So with that said, family, we should have some folks on up here on Friday with the Q2UA Friday. With that said, that's all I have. You can check me on out tomorrow. I'll be back on Covenant Awakenings. Most High willing. So with that said, family, shalom, and you all have a blessed day. Take care.